I'm currently 21F, and this happened to me about 6 years ago when I was about 15 years old. I live in a relatively small town where everyone knows everyone. For reference, there were about 120 kids in my graduating class in high school. The town was so small that there's not a lot of ground to cover, so it wasn't unusual for parents to let their teenagers wander around outside with their friends. My friend from a different town had come over to my house because we were going to see my school's musical later that night. We decided to go wander around outside until it was time to go. She was from a different town, so she was unfamiliar with the area. I suggested we go down to my local train tracks because there's this cool cliff/overpass thing where you can sit and watch the river. I had been to the train tracks with my friends many times before, and people my age used to hang out there all the time. This was sometime in early March, so it was still quite cool where I lived. Even though it was chilly, I remember distinctively that I wore flip-flops for some reason. This will be important later. The train tracks intersected a street in my town, which was quite close to my house, so this was where we entered the tracks. We were walking and spotted a middle-aged man who was alone and on the phone. We thought nothing of it and kept walking. We made it to the overpass and were sitting there just hanging out when we noticed the man we passed earlier was slowly inching closer and closer. We both noticed this but decided not to panic since it was possible he was just making his way down to the tracks. Maybe 5 minutes passed and the man was getting increasingly closer and closer to us. At this point, we noticed that he's getting closer to us at an alarming rate. He's not continuously in motion, it's more like we notice him standing still doing whatever, and then a minute later, he's standing still even closer to us than he was prior. Now, he's close enough where we can clearly make him out. He's within an earshot and could easily get to us if that was his goal. My friend and I were starting to get nervous. We were two teenage girls in the middle of essentially the woods, with no one around us other than this creepy man. I've watched a lot of investigation discovery in my day, so I think it's best to just try to promptly make my way out there without causing chaos. I decided it would be a good idea to pull out my phone and pretend to talk to my mother as we begin walking back to the main road. My friend and I are calmly walking down the tracks while I have my phone to my ear. I'm saying stuff like, "Yeah, we're at the tracks. We're on our way home." Just making shit up so this guy thinks my mom is aware of my exact location. There's a point where we have to walk directly past the man in order to make it to our destination. It's at this point where he opens his mouth and says clear as day,
"I know you're not on your phone."
At this point, my fight or flight kicks in and I'm terrified. Up until this moment, the creepy man had not directly said or done anything to make us think he was a direct threat. The situation was uncomfortable enough that my friend and I thought we better head out. When the man said these words to me, I quickly realized that the perceived threat was both real and dangerous. As soon as my brain registered what he said, my friend and I both ran for our lives. I was never one to enjoy physical activity, let alone running, but I could have won an Olympic marathon that day. I ran so fast, my flip-flop broke and I ended up running barefoot on the gravel that lined the tracks. I was so scared that if I looked back, I would see him running after me, so I didn't. When I finally began running out of steam, I quickly looked back and saw the man standing right where we left him. He didn't run after us, but I couldn't shake the fear of turning around and seeing him chasing me. When we made it to the main road, I quickly called my mom and told her what happened. She was conveniently driving down the exact road we were on and pulled up about 2 minutes later and took us home. My friend and I had never been so scared in our lives. I haven't been to those train tracks since, and to this day, I still think about the man who knew I wasn't on the phone and what his intentions were that day.
I've been on the sub for a couple years now. Had my own couple Let's Not Meet moments, but for some reason tonight I just needed to share what happened. For context, I'm in school still and work for my family member on certain weekends at a local college selling concessions at the stadium. It's about twice a month and the stadium is off towards the edge of town. It's Friday night. I just had gotten out of school and I had to go straight to work. I get to work for 4 hours, and my boss tells me we need more spoons for tomorrow's event. I say, okay, I'll go grab them on my way home. The only store open with heavy-duty spoons is all the way on the other side of town, and I still wanted to go and meet up with some of my friends and mess around. I decided to take the faster but more sketchy way around the outskirts of town. I live in a weather bipolar state. It snowed last night, but I figured the roads would be fine enough even if they weren't plowed. I take off to the store and the first 5 minutes go by and nothing's wrong. I haven't seen a single car or any buildings the entire time. But keep in mind, it's approaching 9 p.m. and I'm on the outskirts of town, and no one really takes this way in case they really have to. All of a sudden, I see something in the corner of my eye, and it looks like a man, roughly 5'8" I'd say, wearing shorts, t-shirt, and a backwards hat. He's in the ditch, walking in snow when it's 10 degrees out. My first thought is to pull over, but I'm on the phone with my mom at the time and she warns me not to, as some things have happened before in this town. I consider stopping, but for some reason I tell myself not to. I wasn't really worried about anything. I'm a young dude driving a big pickup truck. That's the type of person anyone would want to harm, right? I pass the man, going about 40 miles per hour. I drive not even 500 feet past him, and immediately, a car that I did not see at all before turns on and pulls out of a field entrance off the road and starts to follow me. At first I thought I just was focused on the man in the ditch and didn't see a road, and that's where they came from. But I later found out there was not a road there. Now again, I'm not super worried. I've watched my fair share of crime movies and read plenty of stories on this sub, and I didn't feel it was a threat yet. I start to approach the town again and have to take some turns to get where I'm going. I turn left, the car turns left. I turn right, car turns right. I go around a roundabout and skip my turn and go twice as no one else was there. Car follows. At this point I start to worry a little, but maybe they just need to go to the store also. I then pull up to a stop sign and I turn without my turn signal. The car follows. Now at this point I should have went straight to the police station, but I still didn't think much of it. I'm 2 miles from the store where plenty of people will be. I take a few more turns and the car continues to follow me. I completely blew a stop sign at a non-busy intersection and the car does a quick stop and go and catches up. At this point I'm 2 turns till the store, so I'm still not worried. I turn to the store and the car turns also. The store also has a gas station, so I pulled there first to act like I was getting gas. The car sits off to the side of the road and just sits there. I wait about 10 minutes and the car doesn't move. At this point I start to get worried. I'm a young kid alone at night near the bad side of town. I call my friends I'm supposed to meet up with later on and give them the license plate for worst case scenario, then take off to the store. I cross the street and the car comes straight behind me. I'm freaking out on the phone, not knowing if I should call the cops or not. I go and park as close as possible to the store, and the car parks 3 rows behind me and a couple down. It's getting late at this point and the store's closing soon. There's only a couple others in the lot. I turn my truck back on and go park on the complete opposite side of the lot. Get out and I completely bolt inside of the store. I'm not super overweight, but I'm not skinny either. About 6'1" and 200 pounds. Who would want anything to do with me? I get spoons, take my time in the store. I go to call my friends to walk back outside, and my phone is dead. I look out the sliding doors and suddenly there's a white van next to my driver's side. Looks like no one's in it, but the back windows are covered and it's running. Big red flag. I run to customer service and explain everything, but they think I'm some young kid messing around. At the time I didn't see the original follow car, but no way I'm going outside with that van next to my truck. After waiting what seemed like hours, the van pulls forward and the original car appears from the sides of the building. You came from the in-store Starbucks window. They talked, and both drove off. I wait another 10 minutes and dash outside. I speak to my friend's house, and when I get there I park in his garage. My one buddy asks me why there's a big orange mark on my tire, and my heart sinks. When I was inside, the follow car must have marked my tire. After inspecting the rest of the truck, we find a small pipe dropped in the bed of my truck surrounded by snow. It was about 2 inches wide and I'd say about 18 inches long, wrapped in duct tape. It was not mine. I was alone, no phone, scared, in a part of town I'm not familiar with. I try to laugh it off, but now that everyone's asleep, I can't help but think what would have happened if I walked outside. I've always been sort of ego boosted on the fact I'm a chubby fat dude that no one would want to mess with. But after tonight, I realize anyone can be a target. So creepy men who followed me all night and waited by my truck? Let's not meet. Update, police came and took the pipe today. As multiple of you said, and I knew already, they can't really do anything about it as nothing really happened. They said that they'll look into the license plate, but other than that, nothing much can happen, as no crime were committed.
I've just recently discovered this subreddit and I have a story to share that has really traumatized me for quite a while now. And I feel like this is a good place to share. And it will be my first big Reddit post. A lot, if not all, the posts I've read from here are American/Canadian. So for context, it's important that I start with I am from Aotearoa, New Zealand. We do have the odd missing person or scary case, but it's otherwise safe here and not much happens. I mean that in a way that as a 19-year-old girl, I feel comfortable to walk the streets at night or go on hikes alone because it's pretty safe and everyone looks up for one another generally. This happened in the summer of 2019. I will link a location so you can better understand and hopefully some photos if I find them online. My boyfriend and I were headed out on a picnic date to a spot we have visited before plenty of times, Karakariki Track. It is at the end of a very long windy rural farm road off the state highway. So you drive for like 15 to 20 minutes from the main road down a long farm stretch, and at the end is a large cul-de-sac and a surrounding massive farm. The owners of the farm had left the land kind of open to the public as a reserve because there are native trees and other things, and because about a 15-minute walk from the cul-de-sac/car park, there's a small waterfall you can swim in. The track is really popular as it is one of the closest swimming spots to the nearest city, Hamilton, and it's really scenic. You cross footbridges, pass by creek beds, etc. The farmers still go through every now and do their farm work, and there are fenced-off areas the public can't enter as they are still actively working the land. This particular day, my boyfriend and I were super happy because it was empty in the parking lot and it was a super hot summer's day, so that was really rare. The farmer was crossing the cows through the gate on a quad as we arrived, and he smiled and waved at us. He's an older man and we had spoken before as we were regular visitors. So we set off towards the waterfall. We crossed one footbridge and passed through a big paddock of cows. The track is quite narrow and the creek is right off the edges, so you have to be careful. We saw the waterfall and decided against swimming as we had no towels and headed back towards the car park. Now, on our way back, we decided to go down a little bit of a steep gravel off-ramp on the tracks that led to a more private tree-covering area right by the creek. Here's where it starts. We were kissing and whatnot. I was laying on my tummy reading a book, and my boyfriend was sitting up playing on his phone and rubbing my back and playing my hair. We were there for another 10 minutes before I turned and glanced up the gravel path, and way up even further on the hill through one of the farmer's gates, I saw a big man on a quad bike who I didn't recognize as one of the farmers as there was only an old couple who worked the land. He was just sitting there staring at my boyfriend and I don't even want to think about how long he had been there before we noticed. I told my boyfriend, and as soon as the guy saw we were both looking at him, he opened the gate and started heading down. Now both of us immediately got up to leave as we did not want to have a conversation with a farmer about us getting freaky on his land, which is what we both assumed would happen, but it was so much worse. This guy came down the gravel track and ran his quad right through the creek. He left it there running in the water and got off. He was talking to himself, saying things along the lines of,
I've messed up my quad. I've messed up my engine.
Over and over before he even got near us. My boyfriend and I were gathering our things to leave at this point, and he starts to head towards us. He didn't even make any small talk, which was really strange because he went straight into saying,
Have you guys seen any fish? I'm looking for some fish to kill.
My boyfriend tells the guy that there's no fish in the creek as it's fresh water, and he's probably better off catching some eel, and this sends him into a fit and he starts saying,
I don't want no eel, I want to kill some fish.
I had made it a point to not look the guy in the eyes as I did not want to draw the conversation towards myself because I was already extremely freaked and I didn't want him to notice that. My boyfriend is much more of the calm and strong one when it comes to stuff like this. But for a second, I did look at the guy, and I thought he looked like his face was slightly deformed. Possible Bell's palsy, as I worked in aged care and I'd seen it and it looked similar. I bent down to tie my shoe up, and when I was standing back up, that's when I saw a pistol on this man's waist. Listen to me close now. This is my first and last time in my life I have ever seen a real-life gun. It is incredibly hard to get a firearm in New Zealand, especially after the regulations following the mass shooting in Christchurch. And not only that, He had one pistol on his belt and was waving another one about in his hand while he talked to my boyfriend about wanting to kill some fish. He was aiming it down to the creek every now and again and then swinging it around on his finger. My boyfriend gave me this stern look, and stern is the best word for it because the look spoke a million things to me in the moment, and he nodded his head towards the gravel hill leading back to the track. I grabbed the 2 bags we had, fake checked my phone, and told the man that our family were waiting for us back at the car park. He completely ignored what I had said and instead said,
"That's a cool hat you've got on."
or something about my head that was completely irrelevant, so I dismissed myself and said goodbye and made my way to the hill. In my mind, I did not want to look back and see my boyfriend be shot and then a gun in my head. I knew that our best bet was me getting up this hill onto the narrow path he couldn't ride his quad down and sprinting to the farmer's house. As I'm walking up the hill, this guy says to my boyfriend,
"That's a really pretty girl you've got there."
and it was like all the intentions of him I didn't want to believe weren't confirmed. I felt like I would die. My boyfriend though said a quick thank you, we'll be off now, and headed up the hill with me. The guy kept talking on like the conversation hadn't ended even as we headed away, and he stood there, gun in hand, watching us leave. As soon as we were around the corner, we sprinted all the way back to the car park where we hadn't noticed before. There were over 10 empty gun shells? Bullet shells? I don't even know, but empty used bullets. We had run into 2 girls in bikinis just arriving at the spot as we did and informed them about everything. They got in their cars and left immediately. We tried to go to the farmer's house to ask if he knew the guy, as we've never seen him on the land before, but they weren't home anymore. As for the gun, it's still so freaky to me as I had never seen one before. But these pistols look quite old and rusty, and when we discussed the incident on the way home, my boyfriend suggested that they were probably handed down to him from someone else. This incident has stuck with me for the past few years, and my boyfriend and I have not been able to return to the spot, which sucks cause that's where we had our first date and it was really a sentimental place for us. I had to drive past the road leading to the track for like a year as I commuted between towns, and it always made me feel sick. I could have lost my life or my partner that day, or so much worse, and I'm always extremely grateful that my boyfriend is the man that he is and was able to steer the guy away from us for us to leave and to communicate to me through movement to tell me what to do in my freaked out state. He told me after that he was ready to die if he had to, because knowing the guy had been watching us beforehand and complimented me in the way that he did, it was clear that he could have had some scary intentions. It's also made me way more fearful now to travel in the bush alone, which I've done my whole life. Any questions, welcome. Kia ora.